Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Raj Dandekar and I have a PhD in machine learning from MIT. These days, there are so many job roles for machine learning, for data analytics, that it really becomes confusing to know what is the difference and what are the similarities between these roles. Uh, I have received a number of requests from students to clearly explain the different types of roles you can apply for machine learning, for data analytics, etc., and to explain the differences between them. So, this video is specifically focused towards understanding the different types of roles if you are planning to get a job in machine learning or data science. So, let's look at the video to understand further. Okay, so to first understand the different types of ML job roles and why we are making this video in the first place, let us do a live example. Let's say I go to Google and I search jobs. So there is this Google careers page which opens up in which I can type which job role I am interested in. So here I am typing machine learning and I click on enter. So let us look at the different types of roles which show up. Machine learning engineer. This is also machine learning engineer. Then there is software engineer, machine learning. Senior director, machine learning developer, customer engineer, research related to machine learning. So this can be categorized as machine learning research. Then again software engineer. Then comes data analyst, etc. So you can see all of these different types of roles, and it's really very difficult to understand what are the similarities and differences between these roles. So let us try to understand the types of job roles which you can apply. If you look at any machine learning opening, there can be several types. There can be data scientist opening, as you can see over here. There can be a software engineer machine learning opening, as we can see here. There can be something called machine learning engineer, and there is also something called machine learning researcher. So there are these two terminologies and there are differences between them. So let us try to understand the different types of roles which we are seeing and what do they really mean. I am going to be looking at 5 roles in this video. There are more roles also, but that would just make the video length longer. I want to take roles which are the most relevant and I have seen appear again and again in job searches. So the first is machine learning engineer, the second is machine learning researcher, the third is data analyst, the fourth is data scientist, and the fifth is software engineer. I have generally seen all these 5 types of roles when you are trying to apply for data scientist type of a jobs, data analyst type of jobs, or machine learning type of a jobs. Before explaining to you the similarities and differences between them, I want to take a practical or a simple example for you to demonstrate this. Imagine that you are an engineer at New York Times. So New York Times has this very famous game called Wordle. I'm not sure how many of you have played it, but it's a very interesting and fun example. Let me show you how this game works. You can just type Wordle on Google and click here. So you'll be directed to this website. Without logging in, you can play. So I click on play, and here you see New York Times has prompted me that you log in or create an account, but I don't want to do this. So I click on cross. So the way this game works is that there is usually a correct 5 letter word, and I have one, two, three, four, five, six chances to guess it. So let me guess first crane. Now, what it means is that C, what is shown in gray color is not present in the word at all. What is shown in the yellow color is present in the word, but the order is not correct. So R can be here, uh, E can be here, E will be in a different position. So let me check R I risen. Amazing. So now, which means R and E are in their perfect position. So this is how the game proceeds. Now I know that the first letter is R, the fourth letter is E, and I have to guess the correct word. Every day, millions of users around the world play this game. But you know what is the problem for New York Times? They want me to log in, they want me to create an account, and they want me to subscribe. Otherwise, if I just come every day and I play this game for free, they are not making the maximum use of me as a customer. That's the main problem which, let's say, New York Times is facing right now, and they have to take several decisions. The first decision is, when do they show this wall which says that login or sign up? Did you see that when I just entered this game, I was presented with that login or sign up, and I clicked on cross. I did not want to create an account. So the first question is, to each user, when should they show that wall so that the user creates an account, then the user subscribes. So see, subscribe to game, and hopefully they can generate some revenue from the user. That's the problem statement. They want to strategically understand where, when to place that wall, and for different users in different regions, does it differ based on the user experiences? Are some users more likely to subscribe than others, etc.? Whether they should show that ad after, or whether they should show that wall after a user has played 10 games, which means that they know that the user is interested. They want to solve this problem, and I will now show you, to solve this problem, why they need all these five types of people to help them solve that problem. So this is called as the Wordle problem. And now let us understand why New York Times essentially needs these five job roles to be able to solve this problem. Okay, before that, let me quickly explain to you the functions of each of these five roles, and then we will see how it applies to the Wordle problem. So first, let's look at ML engineer. As an ML engineer, your main job will be focused on designing and implementing machine learning models into production. One very key word here is production. If you are working for companies such as delivery app Zomato, or you're working for Blinkit, or any company, Walmart, any company which uses machine learning models, they have millions of customers to serve. And as an engineer, your job is to develop models which can be deployed into production, which means these models which you design will be tested by customers. That's why you have to make them as strong as possible so that they do not fail. So, as a machine learning engineer, your main aim is to design and implement ML models into production. Think of Uber, right? And let's say Uber uses a machine learning algorithm to allocate uh, the best ride to every particular customer. There is someone who has designed that system, that machine learning system, and deployed it into production on the Uber app. That is typically done by a machine learning engineer. So if you are applying for an ML engineer role, you really need to have a very strong proficiency in machine learning algorithms such as regression, classification, clustering, gradient descent, gradient boost, XG boost, difference between bagging, let's say, and boosting techniques, decision trees, deep learning such as neural networks, convolutional neural networks, etc. And you should be able to implement all of these algorithms from scratch. This is typically asked in interviews. Implement logistic regression from scratch. You should be able to do this if you are a machine learning engineer. Apart from this, you should have a basic understanding of deployment technologies such as Docker, Kubernetes, how to use Amazon Web Services, etc. This is the basic knowledge which you need as a machine learning engineer. The second role is machine learning researcher, and this is quite different than an ML engineer. The main goal of a machine learning researcher is to develop new machine learning algorithms or techniques. Typically, machine learning engineer does not develop novel algorithms. They use existing algorithms, but they fine tune things such as fine tuning hyperparameters, deciding the best architecture of the neural network to use, deciding the best algorithm, deciding the best activation function. That's done by the ML engineer. ML researcher has a much more theoretical job. Let's say if the XGBoost algorithm is not working for your specific problem, an ML engineer's task can be to come up with a novel algorithm itself. And that requires you to have a very fundamental understanding of the mathematical concepts underlying machine learning, such as linear algebra, probability, and statistics. You need to have a very deep experience and understanding of the math behind machine learning algorithms, because unless you know the math better, you won't be able to develop new algorithms. Uh, it is very common for machine learning researchers to also publish papers regularly. So let's say if you develop a new algorithm as an ML engineer, it can be published by the company and you can be an author. You must be seeing archive preprint papers by Apple. So let us search Apple preprint LLM paper. Look at this particular paper which was released recently, LLM in a flash. And if I click on view PDF, this is the PDF of that paper, and you see the affiliation, it's Apple. So it is very likely that all of these people who have worked on this paper and who have submitted this abstract, they are ML research engineers at Apple. So the way researcher differs from engineer is that researcher develops novel algorithms or techniques which can then be passed off to an ML engineer. One important thing to note is that in job interviews for ML engineer and researcher, it is actually quite common to ask DSA questions. So I had this experience with Facebook. I applied for their ML software engineer role and they asked me DSA questions. But even for ML engineer and ML researcher roles, I know people who had asked DSA questions. So it's very important that you practice basics of DSA, not going through it extremely extensively, which is needed for a software engineer role, but still you need to be aware of DSA if such questions are asked. As an ML engineer and ML researcher, you also need knowledge of the design systems. So, for example, if someone asks you how is the machine learning architecture of Uber designed and implemented, you need to have an understanding of how it essentially works. Even for Zomato, there are case studies online which you can find, which is called as ML design case studies. And you can just have a look at that before going to interviews and sharpen your knowledge in ML design. So these are the differences between ML engineer and ML researcher. Now let's come to the data-based roles such as data scientist and data analyst. In my experience, data scientist and data analyst are broadly similar. The only difference is that as a data scientist, you are required to be able to read research papers, do literature review, come up with patterns in research papers, etc. So you need to have a good focus or emphasis on the research. Apart from that, the main thing which is needed in data analyst and data scientist is that you need a very very strong understanding of SQL. It's a query language to pull data, and you also need to have a strong understanding of data visualization, data manipulation, cleaning data, data imputation, etc. The main job of a data scientist is to first of all convert the data into a format which is accessible. Real world data is noisy, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be pulled from servers. That is the main job of a data scientist, is to pull the data from servers by writing queries in SQL, clean the data, then let's say you need to know how to deal with the missing values in the data, how to deal with the noise in the data, one hot encoding, feature representation, etc. You need to be aware of all of these data related techniques. If you're going for data scientist or data analyst jobs, you really also need basic understanding of ML frameworks like regression, clustering, classification, etc., because that may be asked. For both of these jobs, I would say data analyst and data scientist, you need a knowledge of SQL, Python or R, and Tableau. So Tableau is a data visualization software and it's gained a lot of popularity recently. So Tableau is one software which you should have an understanding of, and Power BI is another software which you should have an understanding of. These are very easy softwares, and there are tutorials online which you can go through in detail to understand how to use these softwares. So this is the main functions of data scientist and data analyst. You need to pull the data, you need to clean the data, you need to process the data, you need to visualize the data, and you also might need to apply some ML techniques. It is not completely needed, but it might be required. When you prepare for interviews, be sure to at least go through basic ML techniques if you're going for data scientist or data analyst interviews. But the basic knowledge which is needed is SQL, R, Python, Excel, Power BI, and Tableau. These six tools you definitely need to know. And the final example or the final role which we'll talk about is machine learning software engineer. The role of a software engineer is quite different from the researcher, engineer, data scientist, and data analyst. Here, the main goal is to develop software apps, databases, front end and back end frameworks. Consider Uber. If the Uber app suddenly hangs because a large number of users are using it, you will be held responsible, and it's your responsibility to get back the app again. Secondly, if it turns out that the database structure which you're using right now is not optimal and you need to change it, it's your responsibility. If the team takes a decision that the language in which the entire coding is done has to change from PHP to Rust, it's your responsibility to do that. So, as a software engineer, you need a very strong programming background in either of the languages, Python, Java, C, etc. And you need to have a firm understanding of data structures and algorithms. If you are going for software engineer interviews, I would highly recommend to practice a lot of DSA, lead code problems. If you are not aware what lead code is, it's this particular platform where you can go and where you can solve data structures and algorithms related problems. If you click on problems here, you will get a wide range of easy, medium, and difficult problems. And you need to solve problems in all sections: arrays, strings, hash tables, dynamic programming, sorting, greedy algorithm, backtracking, etc. I know people who have solved 300, 350 problems in lead code to develop their understanding before applying for software engineer roles. So just be prepared for that live coding interview session. And for that, you need to have a solid understanding of the time complexity of algorithms. Then the best solution techniques such as sliding window approach, all of these things which are needed for software engineer interviews. Now, hopefully, you have gotten a decent idea of what are the similarities and differences between these five roles: ML engineer, ML researcher, data scientist, data analyst, and software engineer. Now, let us look at the Wordle problem, which we motivated at the start, where the main problem was you need to decide where to show that screen for login, how to get more and more customers to subscribe instead of just coming here and playing. Let us see how each of the engineers or how each of the roles play a role. So the problem is that people just come and play, not many are subscribing, when to show the pop-up for subscription, whom to show, etc. So let us see the different roles. Let us first see what a data analyst or a data scientist would do. A huge number of people, millions of people from all over the world are using Wordle, and all of that data, let's say, is collected in an Amazon Web AWS server. Your role, first of all, as a data scientist or analyst, is to use SQL to put queries to the data and to collect the data in a usable format. Your second role is to use visualization softwares like Tableau or even Python, R Markdown, etc., to pre-process and visualize the data. Even before visualization, you might need to clean the data. If there are some blank entries or some data which has not been entered correctly, you need to clean it. It's also called data imputation. So, data collection, imputation, pre-processing, and visualizing, it's your first role as a data scientist or analyst. Then you can also analyze existing data on user behavior to identify patterns that, okay, users in this region are subscribing more. Why is that? Why are these users more engaged, and why does this lead to more subscription convergence? So you have to make all of this analysis. You might even need to run some basic ML frameworks. then your role as a machine learning engineer is purely developing ML models to predict which users are likely to subscribe after playing Wordle. You might need to develop a random forest model which predicts that if a user is in a given region and if they interact or if they play Wordle for a particular duration of time, how likely are they to subscribe? And this model might involve collecting data on user behavior, training the models. This is most important. You need to decide the neural network architecture, you need to decide the algorithm. Are you using decision tree? Are you using logistic regression? Are you using XGBoost? You need to decide what to use, and you need to make sure that the training and testing is perfect, your model is not overfitting, and accurate predictions are made in real time. It's a tough job, and that's why ML engineers are very much in demand these days in different companies. Now coming to ML researcher, if the ML engineer figures out that all of the hypotheses, all of the algorithms which he has tested are not working, which he or she have tested are not working, and for the specific problem, the algorithm itself needs to adapt or the algorithm itself needs to be new. That's the role of a ML researcher. So the ML researcher then needs to work on a novel algorithm which might even lead to a research publication. Sometimes ML researcher and ML engineers role can overlap, where researchers can also provide insights on fine tuning the model, which architecture to use, etc. Finally, let's look at the ML software engineer. The main goal of the ML software engineer is to implement the changes to the website or the game, including integration of new ML algorithms, etc. It is the ML software engineer's role to make sure that the website remains scalable, secure, and functional with these new features. The software engineer has to ensure that the algorithms developed by the ML engineer are employed on the actual website, and they have to make sure that the website is functional. As a result, all of these roles, data scientist, data analyst, ML engineer, ML researcher, and ML software engineers, all these five roles are extremely crucial um, when you look for jobs, and that's why you have these different types of segregations. So there is no need to be confused. First, you can make a decision of whether you are applying for data related roles or ML. If your ML background is weak but you are strong in Power BI, SQL, Python, R Markdown, and Tableau, and you are strong in data analysis, pre-processing, cleaning, etc., go for data analyst or data scientist roles. If your ML knowledge is tremendously strong and you can implement algorithms such as random forest, then logistic regression, etc., from scratch, go for ML engineer roles. If you have a master's or if you have a PhD, you are very strong in research, you have published some papers in ML, you can go for an ML researcher role. If you have experience with coding, if you are comfortable with DSA, or if you have practiced a large amount of DSA questions and you are comfortable with software engineering as well as ML, go for the ML software engineer role. There is one more role actually which is extremely in demand these days, and that's called as an ML ops. So ML ops is basically at the intersection of design, model development, and operations. So if you look at this particular photo, so ML ops, if you are applying for ML ops, you need to not only have a strong understanding of all the ML which is needed for the data engineer and ML engineer and ML researcher framework, you need to have a very strong understanding of operations such as CI/CD pipelines, monitoring and triggering, ML model development, model testing and validation, etc. That's why this ML ops role has become so popular. There are a number of organizations which, instead of hiring an ML researcher or an ML engineer, they only hire an ML ops engineer. So these are the various types of roles which are uh, very much in demand these days. But don't be confused by these roles. First of all, I wanted to show you that there is a reason why all of these roles exist, because organizations who want to solve real world problems like these, they really need the assistance of all of these roles. So make an informed decision when you are applying. I'll make another video regarding the preparation material or what is needed for preparation for interviews for these different types of roles. But in this video, I just wanted to give you an understanding of what are the similarities, differences between these roles, and why so many roles exist in the first place. And I hope you have gotten that understanding. We also run a very popular playlist called Machine Learning Teach by Doing that has 22 videos so far, starts from complete basics and explains all the concepts of machine learning in a very visual manner, which I believe has not been done in other courses so far. Thank you so much, and I hope this video added value to your lives.